Good day, and welcome to the Talk It Out podcast with Neal Bailey-Harper. I am Neal Bailey-Harper, and today I'm here on Sunday morning with the ground rules. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We're back on YouTube. This podcast today is about my point of reference, and I'm not going to tell you too much in my business. However, I will share my journey. And I hope you're willing to mentally share your journey, if not with me, if with the people around you. The music I'm listening to today begins with one of my earliest influences. I have a sister. I have a lot of sisters, but one who went to Howard University. Now, I don't glowingly speak of Howard University. It's a good school, but I went to North Carolina Central University. However, Louise is a little older than me, and at the age of 14, she brought home an album one summer of Terry Collier. The album is What Color Is Love, with such songs on it as I'd Rather Be With You. It opened up some avenues in my head where this guy was telling stories. He's a songwriter telling stories, playing the guitar about his life. It blew me away. It got me first attracted to not just music, but to wanting to be a musician. This is a Terry Collier song. It's entitled Hidden Conversations. Okay. My name is Neal Bailey-Harper. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I am a diehard Eagles fan. And say what you want about the NFL season. We played 2 games. We won 2. We lost none. Let's move on. I have a large family. I grew up with 9 sisters and 2 brothers. Presently, I have 10 sisters and 3 brothers. Not that there's any been new births in this family. This brother and this sister I found through other stories that will come out later on in the podcast that I will do. Thank you for listening. Hope you like the podcast. Want to share it and subscribe to it monthly. It's $4.99 a month. If you do, you do. If you don't, I want you to listen anyhow. Listen, I grew up wanting to be, I don't know. I grew up in Philadelphia, and the crazy thing about it is when you look back, I never remember calling our neighborhood the hood. Yeah, never remember doing that. We called it the neighborhood. And in my neighborhood, in the early 60s, 70s, within walking distance, and I'm not talking about country mile walking distance, I'm talking about city block walking distance, within maybe 3 blocks walking distance in either direction, and I never understood how on TV they say he's going north on, I don't get that, but in either direction, there was 3 grocery stores. One that was owned by the neighborhood businessmen. There was a library, a recreation center, a medical center that you could just walk in, and a doctor's office in walking distance in the 60s, in the 70s, in my neighborhood. Go back to that neighborhood now, there's none of that. So progress, yeah, there's progress in one way, but we digress in others. Nevertheless, I loved Philadelphia as a child. I wanted to grow up, but I realized I had to get out of Philadelphia. Okay, so that was Terry Collier. The next artist I play. Now, I begin every podcast with music, and I try to keep music going. No, I keep music going on through every podcast. Sometimes the music will relate to what I'm talking about. Sometimes it's just good music that fits the mood. Today, I'm relating. Here is the second artist that I want to feature. Again, I'm going back to Louise coming home from Howard. She brought home an album along with the Terry Collier, What Color Is Love? Because we all have record players then. And if you don't know, listen, let somebody who knows show you one. We all have record players. She brought home an album by Gil Scott-Heron and Brian Jackson entitled Winter in America. I fell in love with it. And here's the thing about me as a young musician. In Terry Collier, I could hear his stories. Gil Scott-Heron was a poet, so his stories were right out there in front of you. But I could also hear his voice and thought to myself, I can sing like that. Or I can have a voice like that. Now, he is a great artist. I didn't confuse any of that with being a kid. But I just heard that for me, something made it think it was possible for me to do that, what he was doing. This is Pieces of a Man. Now, the other reason why I played this song, I played the Terry Collier song because Hidden Conversations is what I want to do with this podcast, is to throw out conversations that you can have with the people around you, okay? It's not so much I want you to hear or talk back to me. I want you to talk it out with those in your world. Real conversations are hard to have. Real conversations can be uncomfortable. Learning can be uncomfortable. W. Kamau Bell. And it's true. But the alternative to not having real conversations and to not learning is nothing better. It's worse. So, I want to throw out conversations. I believe that if thousands of people or millions of people try to have the same conversation at the same time, nothing moves forward. But if I can put out something that provokes a thought in your mind, to talk to someone around you, to talk to someone in your environment, to have a conversation with those people in your environment, then progress comes from the ground up. Not life-changing, life-affirming. I'm not here to tell you something you don't know. I'm just trying to help myself and you talk it out. So, I played Pieces of a Man because I grew up in North Philadelphia, and I hear a lot of stories about how things went wrong that were overcome. Yes, that's a real thing. A lot of us have to overcome things to get to where we are. But those aren't the only stories. In my own world, I was raised by Irene Tallulah Bell, who was my grandmother, who graciously lived to be 103 years old. And my mother, Eleanor Agnes Bell, or Agnes Eleanor Bell. Another story for another day. Love her to death, and she lived to be at least 80 years old. She had 4 siblings that were over 80. All of my 10 sisters and 3 brothers, praise God, are still alive. And there was not a man outside of my Uncle Linwood. There was never a father in my house. But I learned from good men all around my neighborhood. The men in my neighborhood might not have been great husbands or whatever else you want to call them, but what they were, what I saw them as, was providers. They provided daily, and they provided physically, and they provided mentally. I have a story I wrote called The Russian Sailor Hat. And this story is about me when I was 11 years old. Okay, if you're from the city of Philadelphia, it's 2 things that you might relate to, or any northeastern city. As a kid and a family with not a lot of means, 2 things really came in handy. One was a Navy pea coat. I had a Navy pea coat. A Navy pea coat was the heaviest coat you could find at that time. And lots of times we found them in Goodwills through Navy officers passing them down. They were warm. They were warm, man. And a Russian sailor hat, which was those little flat hats that opened up and you could put on your head. Well, I had a Russian sailor hat. And I also love tasty cakes. So let me tell you what happened. First, let me play the next song. So I listened to Terry Collier at 14. I listened to Gil Scott-Heron at 14. I listened to this guy in college. This is the great Al Jarreau. The song is Look to the Rainbow. So, Terry Collier was a guitar player and a storyteller. Gil Scott-Heron was a keyboard player and a poet. Al Jarreau was a singer, a self-trained musician. I fed off of all of these guys. I sponged them and I got something that I could add to me that let me believe in what I wanted to be. This is Al Jarreau from the 1977 Live in London album. The song is called Look to the Rainbow. Okay, back to my rainbow. So I'm in the grocery store picking up something for my Uncle Linwood, and I had my Russian sailor's hat. Tasty Cakes. The Tasty Cake honey bun actually fit perfectly in my Russian sailor hat. I might have had enough change to buy it, but I didn't. I took the Tasty Cake honey bun and I slid it inside my Russian sailor hat, which I never had to open. So I'm getting what I got from the store, and on my way out of the store, when I speak of the men in my neighborhood, Eccles Market is where I worked from the time I was 11 till I went to college. 4 brothers passed down to them from their father. They had been in the Korean War. They worked for the railroad. One was a lawyer. One had 7 kids, but they were grown men. And as I'm leaving the store, the youngest brother, Tyrone Eccles, who had recently took over the store, a Korean War veteran, called me out, called my name while I'm walking out the door. I'm thinking he saw me steal the honey bun. He didn't. He offered me a job. And unbeknownst to me at that time, the blessing of an 11-year-old having a job in a grocery store when Nana and Mom are providing for 12 kids at home really helped. So I worked there until I went to college. There were men all around my neighborhood that looked out for me. There was a musician, Richard Watson, is a musician. But I looked at him as a musical mentor because I could walk 1 block up the street and talk to him about something I've written, show it to him, and got affirmation from him. There were a lot of men that told me little things that at one point I said to myself, I looked at them and said, you haven't done anything yet. How can you tell me something? But then I learned to look at them and said, yeah, you've done a lot. And I'm blessed that you're telling me something. I had teachers, high school and college, who were just there, supportive, and could see me better than I could see myself at that time, or helped me see me better than I saw myself. There were men all around. There's a myth. I did a podcast on Spotify recently called The Myth of the Angry Black Woman. That is definitely a myth. Black women aren't angry. But there's also a lot of myths about men. Black, white, but myths about men. And while I have encountered some of what was said, some of the stereotypical images we are seeing in, I know a lot more. I do. A college professor. Well, let me tell you this, to look to the rainbow. I'm going back to the rainbow again. The rainbow to me meant looking toward your dreams. Every time what you dream about keeps me going. I don't know if it keeps you going, but I still dream towards goals, so to speak. So I graduated from North Carolina Central in 1982. Yeah, I took the 6-year program. I had a blast, but I took the 6-year program. And I ended up back in North Philadelphia with a degree in vocal, French, German, and Latin music. Yeah, great, right? Not a lot of jobs. So I'm back in 6 years after I left the city, and I got accepted at Howard, Hampton, Morgan State and North Carolina Central University. I chose North Carolina Central University because it had the longest name and it was the farthest one away from home. I saw the campus the day I got there. I loved it, but I'm just being real about that. After graduating in 1982, I found myself back in North Philadelphia. No job, third floor, back room, looking out the window. That's when I decided to follow my dream. My dream at that time was to leave Philadelphia. Now, I went to a great high school. We have a saying amongst ourselves, put out there by one of our class members, Tariq Asad, who I call Crimer. And it's an acronym, FOTAS, F-O-T-H-A-S. FOTAS, F-O-T-H-A-S, which stands for Friends of the Heart and Soul. We still have that connection today. 372 people in that class, one big connection and a lot of small little connections. All of us love. Well, I'm in Philadelphia now with a college degree sitting in my mom's house. I decided to go and follow my dream by a gentleman who helped me through college, a businessman, partly loan shark, helped me through college. So when I got back to Philadelphia, I borrowed money from him. This is how I had the understanding of what a VIG is. So I borrowed money, and in a week's time, I paid that money back with interest. I borrowed a little bit more money, and in that week's time, I paid that money back with interest. Then I borrowed a lot of money. And I got on a Trailways bus and went to North Carolina, and then took a Trailways bus to San Diego, California. Yeah. I didn't see a situation in North Philadelphia at that time, or I didn't have the patience for a situation in North Philadelphia at that time that would have helped me follow my dream. My dream was something fresh. My dream was something that I could focus on every day. The dream wasn't North Philadelphia, the dream was California. And the reality in the dream became a way to get to California. It took me several years before I could go back to Philadelphia, even just to visit my parents. But I'm not sure if I didn't follow that path. I don't know, I could have turned out just fine. But I'm here now. So, I don't know what a lot of us do to get to where I am. I had this conversation with my sons. I have two grown sons. And I think a lot of times when we have avenues that we can talk through and talk out without judgment or just being honest with each other, love can grow. So that got me to California, and that's round. It's been a lot of stuff since then, but again, that's the way I felt about it. One more artist. This lady. This is Minnie Riperton. Now, when she passed in 1982, I had a moment. I had a long moment thinking about this. I remember sitting in that third floor window looking out, because then all things run through my mind, only the good die young, or geniuses, why was she taken away? I think she's an incredible artist. I think two of the greatest duets, firstly, is Minnie Riperton and the great Peabo Bryson. The song is Here We Go. I think two of the greatest duets I've ever heard were with Minnie Riperton. The one I'm playing right now with Peabo Bryson, and another one she did with Jose Feliciano, version of Light My Fire. But that set off a commitment to music for me. I think I can do a lot of things. I know my passion is music. And I like to also connect my music through poetry and connect that poetry through conversations. So, with this podcast, which I am now actually simulcasting on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Overcast, Bullhorn, and a few more platforms, and I thank you for listening. I hope you can connect to both of them. I look at me talking from the boardroom. Okay, I look at this space as the boardroom. I want to put things out that you can talk to you and yours about in a breakout room. See, like I said before, if thousands or a million of us talk on one conversation, we're not going to get a lot done. But if I can light a spark for a conversation that you can have with those in your world, with those in your home, with yourself. Some of the best conversations I have are with myself. But if I can do that and help a process move along, like it helps a process for me, that's what the Talking Out is about. It's about grown-ups who can respectfully agree or disagree with each other. But we don't talk around stuff. We talk through it. I don't know, and I don't profess to know any situations people have. I try to stay away from myths and stereotypes of people. I speak on what I know. My point of reference are my life experiences and the research I do. That's what I'll speak from. The only thing that I will speak on in a different way is public service and people who choose to serve the public. Because you take that choice, because you say, this is what I want to do to help people, if you're getting in there and you're doing anything but helping people, I would like a conversation about that. Okay? Outside of that, I speak on musicians. I do podcasts titled Musicians I Love, which explains, or which just tells musicians I love. I want to know what you like. I want to know what you hear. I want to know what you see. I want to know what you feel comfortable talking about. I also want to know what you feel uncomfortable talking about. And the things I feel uncomfortable talking about, I don't want to talk to a lot of people about. And most times, I don't want to talk to somebody I don't know about. But it's harder to talk to people you do know about the things that make you uncomfortable. So let's find a way. I bring it up, you take it to where you need it to go, and let's pray for the best. My name is Neal Bailey-Harper. This is the Talk It Out podcast on YouTube. I will talk to you again soon. Thanks for listening.